I can dance to the live. Are we live already? Mm-hmm. Go ahead and live me. I'm already on live?
Yeah.
You've been on live.
Hey guys, what's up y'all? We are in a radio station and you're going to hear this interesting conversation about the relationship between Caribbean Americans and African Americans in South Florida. I hope you like it. Comment.
All American Roofing is a family operating business. Takes a serious 49 years. It's a big investment. Attorneys Title Partners focuses on first time.
Come in.
Come in. Hey, welcome back. You have me jamming, DeLeon. Thank you. You know what time it is. I like to talk, but I like to dance more. I'm really excited, guys. Great conversation. Keep making your comments. We love to hear what you got to say. And Al, I'm really excited that we get to kind of peel back the onion and talk about things that people are not aware of, that are kind of beneath the surface here in South Florida. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people like to deny, but I think once you get things in the open, like you're doing, you get to create a solution and figure out where we go from here. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, you know, when I thought about this topic, I didn't want to just hop on the issue itself without speaking about the solutions to that. And I think the main thing is to understand that we're put on this earth for a purpose.
Absolutely.
And I don't believe that the God I serve wants us to live in a small world. He's created this world for us to live in the expanse of it. And so there are so many different cultures and so many different people that God surrounds us by. And he's not hidden things from us.
No.
I believe he puts things in our path so that we will expand our minds and our hearts to really understand people from different cultures and come to appreciate. I think we can't appreciate our own culture until we can appreciate the cultures of other people.
I think so. I think what happens is, again, I do believe, we got a caller.
Okay, let's take that call.
Let's do it.
Well, hey there, guys. This is Charlene. I'm listening to the radio. I just came back into my room, Al.
Hey, Charlene.
How you doing?
Good.
What was that for stepping in the other day and being our guest?
Hey, we in here, trying to hold it down.
I'm so.
Y'all doing a great job, man. Let me tell you, this subject is so powerful. And to me, I don't care if you're Jamaican, Haitian, but where you are, we are all one.
Oh yes, I can agree more.
And I have my niece, she's from Haiti, my sister-in-law, she's from the Bahamas, and we are just one.
Absolutely.
And that's how I feel about it.
You're absolutely right, Charlene, and I'm glad you took time from your vacation to call us today.
Oh.
Suzette, don't let them tell you that I'm not on vacation.
I love it.
You should.
I'm still working up here. Suzette, Chester Bishop told me he says hello.
Oh, what's up, Chester Bishop? Of course, he's the man. Oh, he's listening too? Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, he understands where I'm coming from. Listen, this is a very crucial issue, and we got to talk about it because it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and people pretend. I'd rather you not pretend with me. I mean, I have people all the time who's like, you Jamaican? Like, all of a sudden it changed who I was. And I'm like, just relax. I'm the same person, actually. And it just shows you how, and I think a lot of it boils down to, and Sherilyn, maybe you agree or not, it's on how the individual feels about themselves. A lot of insecure people is walking around on this earth right now. And if they're not in love with themselves, or they feel like they have some sort of deficiency, or like I say, media is powerful. You got stuff that makes black people afraid of other black people right now, subconsciously, on all levels, on the TV, on the internet, and all kind of places that we don't even trust each other. So it makes sense to me that it would even translate cultural to say us versus them. And another thing is, people love to trick you to believe there's only one little slice of pie that you got to share. Now, if we all looked at it as like this whole big old pie, we lock arms, we could take more of the pie. We don't need to be relegated to this little old slice and believe that for some reason, because our skin tone is the same color, we only deserve this slice. It's a trick of the enemy. Let me just tell you right now. And we got to get past it in South Florida.
Amen.
Sister, I love you. You know that?
Oh, I love you.
All right, Charlene, we thank you.
thank y'all for doing a great job. I'll be back next Saturday. I hope you come back too.
Okay, my love. Thank you. Thanks for checking in.
All right,
Okay,
Charlene.
thank you, sweetie.
Take
right.
care.
Okay, let me give out that phone number again. It's 954-533-6499. Give us a call and give us your thoughts on this topic we're calling the cultural divide. Okay, to get back to our discussion, I thought we'd take this second half hour to talk about the solutions. How do we get out of how do we combat the cultural divide to win?
Yeah, I think there's some things that are happening, particularly in Broward County, that will allow us to win. I went to an event this week Monday, called the Black Chamber of Commerce of Broward County. And I want to give a huge shout out to Haywood Jarrett and the work that she has done. I've been hearing, it's so funny when you're in the same circles, we're both attorneys. People have been saying, she told us about this, like she wanted to do this like 2 years ago. And they're so excited for her to see it finally birth on Monday. It was a kickoff. But I will tell you, Al, I have never seen, and I'll put it like the young folks say, the wokeness that I've seen in Broward County as of late. There has become like a renaissance of the type of business person that is present here in Broward County. There were people that used to only want to, I'm going to use the funeral guys, I'm not going to say any names, that only became like the funeral person for the African American, or the funeral person for the Jamaican community, or the funeral person for the this community. And yes, you have people that live in closer proximity to your funeral home, or it can be any business. I really don't want to pick on anybody because that's really not besides the point. But the point is, you're getting a lot more crossover because you realize everybody money is green. One thing we have to stop doing, and one thing I love about Shahiwa's organization, is that she understands the power of our communities as a unified communities of both African American and Caribbean American is our dollar. If we look at the money that we spend and could be spending with one another, we would change Broward County's politics, Miami-Dade's politics, Palm Beach County politics to a whole nother level. And I would hate to think that, and I heard John Beckford, who was a good friend of mine, he's running here in Lauderhill. I'm wishing him luck. I'm wishing everybody in all the different races during the primary coming up here in Florida on August 28th. A lot of luck. Get out there and vote. You know I'm about to do a live tomorrow about voting, so make sure you go vote. Vote early, but make sure you go vote. One thing I love about one thing he said, I heard him on actually it was a radio interview, and he was like, I don't want you to vote for me because you think, I'm Jamaican enough or I'm not Jamaican enough. I want you to vote for me because you think I'm a good man that can handle your issues. And that when a person walks into his office, he's not going to not help them because they're not Jamaican or African American. That's a person that resides in his district who pays taxes. And that needs to be the impetus of why we support people. Like, I'm all for, diversity of all kinds. But we need to also be very curious and ask ourselves, why do I behave the way I do? Do I think things that are right, wrong, or maybe just some things that I've learned? I had people that I went to school in Gainesville, go Gators. I remember I met some good friends, happened to be African American, from the outskirts of Gainesville. Lake Butler, stand up. I'm trying to think, Quincy, stand up. I'm trying to think of some of the other places. They told me they thought Jamaicans make their head small. That's what they told me. Like rural South, rural South. You know what I'm saying? Like in jest, but also having never, I think I was the first person of another type of black that they had ever met. It's not wrong, right? It is not to know. And I met people there when I was at school that told me that. They were like, where I'm from is either white or black. There is no you. There's no sprinkle of any different culture. And it wasn't that they didn't like, they just didn't know. So that was like a whole, going to college was like a whole opening of the universe for them, that there can be black people. Black is you with a different culture. But it doesn't make your culture any less. It was just different. And if you look at our pot, if you look at how we cook, and if you look at some of the religious beliefs, and if you look at some of those, how we dress, there's that mixture, that's that base in there. That African base. If we really observe, we're not that different. You make greens, I make callaloo. Hello. They just cousins. You get what I'm saying? So if you really look at it, what we're thinking of as a divide, to me, can be something that is externally pushed upon you so that you lose. Both of y'all lose.
Right. Oh, I totally get that, and I think the challenge for all of us, like you said, I think it doesn't. This isn't something that the government can legislate, the local politicians, the churches can preach about on Sundays, but we have to look into our own hearts and minds.
Absolutely.
And the challenge is that our minds are a very interesting organism.
Yes.
It doesn't like to accept new information, something that it's not familiar with. And so we often grow with comfort zones in our minds and our heads and our hearts. And when we're asked to go outside of those comfort zones, our mind will resist it. You know, if you try to introduce something new to your mind, you'll notice, but you know, the resistance, right, the resistance to it right away. Because no, this is unfamiliar territory.
Right.
But I think we have to go beyond that, and I think, you know, it's not something easily done. It takes an effort. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be willing to meet new people who are not just part of your culture. You may not understand their accent, but you have to push through those things in order to enrich your life.
Absolutely.
I think if you only eat vanilla ice cream all your life, you'll never know what strawberry tastes like.
Yeah, or chocolate.
Or chocolate, or
all great pistachio, or rum on raisin.
Okay.
Or any of that.
You never know the flavors that are available.
No,
And
it's true.
I think it behooves us all to get big, to grow big.
You know what will help people? Traveling.
Yes, absolutely.
Travel.
Absolutely.
Get outside your block. Outside of your county, outside of your state, get a passport.
Go to Miami.
I know. Drive across the county line. You know, there's people that don't do that. There's people that refuse to drive across the county line. It's like so far away, and you're like, okay, where do we live? And I think, and then I do acknowledge that would be a socialization difference because Jamaica, wherever, Antigua, Barbados is an island. Guess what you got to do? You gotta fly to get off of it.
Right.
So there's no apprehension to have gone somewhere else and experienced someone else's culture. That is a norm to me, right? My passport was stamped under the age of 10 several times. So, but then I had friends who was 21 who had never left their county, and I could imagine. I'm like, what limitations that places on an adult who thinks they know what the world is but has never left their block. So I think a lot of times because we get stuck and we're afraid, and again, that comes with the socialization. And when I say that, I mean the historical danger, particularly to African Americans. You didn't want to travel at first. Now we're in a different time though, guys. Right. But it was ingrained in you. I was watching Rest in Peace, Aretha Franklin. Thank you, Don Lemon. Can I just give Don Lemon a shout out? I don't know if y'all watch on CNN. All the way that beautiful icon took over the screen. And what I'd love to tell you is as well, we are very broad people. When you talk about people who love music, the Caribbean, I mean, it's amazing to think of it as different. When my mom was little, she talked about jamming to all the R&B and soul singers. What we got to also realize is African American culture is the culture of America. Mm-hmm. There is no jazz, there is no blues, there is no rock and roll without African Americans. And I don't start with the Louis Armstrongs and them. I start with their grandmothers who were singing on the plantations. When we talk about the beauty of American music, we want to start the 20s. Nah, it can't. And you know what? I think the majority knows that there's something special about that, and that there's something different that some people don't have. Let's just put it like that. Yeah. But I say that to say when I think about how my mom was reminiscing about Aretha Franklin, she's just as much her icon as the person who grew up in Detroit. And I'm sure there's a woman out there sitting in London who is also feeling the loss of Aretha Franklin because she don't see her as an American. She sees her as her sister, as well as just the broadness of her light and her gift. She belonged to the world. So I think we have to really get back to that consciousness that you mentioned that came after the civil rights movement. And I do think there is something because of Trump that has prodded black people to remember who we are and remember where we've been so we don't go back. But I encourage you also to see that the culture that is called African American culture influences the world. And in music and fashion, when we look at what's going on everywhere else, you don't have no culture that in the middle of Australia people are rapping. You got rap contests in Russia. You got people breakdancing in Azerbaijan. You got people all over Dubai. If we realize what our cultural significance is to the globe, that magic they want to bottle and steal from you and sell back to you, you would understand that what we say in Jamaica, one love, boo. That same, I'm going to say, it's the same root. We just have to remember it, and we can't turn on each other because we think, there's something distinctive, and therefore I'm afraid of you, or I'm insecure, or I want to see less of you and make sure I say I'm better. Who cares? We exchange. Mm-hmm. We just do it in different ways. So it's important to remember that there are people that have transcended for a long time and played in Cuba and played in Panama and played in all these other places and then came here. And only now do I see that we think that people stayed in one place. People used to travel.
Right.
People used to exchange culture. The Tito Puentes and the this and the that. They didn't just, the Celia Cruzes. They were iconic black people who just happened to come not from America, in other places. So, I mean, we've transcended a lot, but I think we got to just kind of remember that who we are.
Right. When you brought up the fact that who's in the White House now, I think he does have a purpose. And I think the purpose is to wake folks up. Absolutely. And to recognize what's really going on in the world. And I think there was a sense of complacency that existed.
Oh, yes.
I think we got President Obama in the office, and people felt like we
made it.
Right, we felt like we had arrived, and
we can be cool now. We got a black president. We good.
Right. But that wasn't the case, and it isn't the case. No. It doesn't really matter who's in the White House.
Right.
What matters is who's in your house.
Ooh.
Who's in your heart.
Yes.
Who's ruling and directing your life.
You see, if you study humanity and see people just as human beings first, and I call it as creations of God, and help me, God, to see that, because when I get mad at people or I want to discount somebody else's gift, God designed them and put them on earth just like he designed you.
Exactly.
And if you call yourself whatever belief, Muslim, Christian, whatever, all of us have the same root yet again. But if you think about that as being love thy neighbor as thyself. You can't even start the conversation to love somebody else. You got to do the internal work first. And we skip that part. So then we end up in strife with our brothers, and then we end up with less than what we started with. It is so confusing to me how much we kind of like want to. I saw it on Instagram like this: you want to glow up from the outside in,
right.
But they forgot that the real glow up is on the inside.
Right.
So once we start to look at each other just as a child of God with a different accent, I'm so glad that my first church, they didn't shun us because we had different accents. Mm-hmm. Like it was crazy. But we came to learn, and they were willing to teach. So I think, like I said, if everybody had that experience, we'd be far more unified. But not everybody gets to have that. They get the brush by and I don't like this person. Look how he did me, and now I call everybody of that background terrible or mean, or that lady treated me bad at the bank and she was a this, so I'll never trust one. Come on, bro.
Well, I think there's a lot to learn from some of the other cultures that are out there that are very unified. There are some cultures out there that will only buy from their fellow people that are part of their culture.
They will drive past your store,
right,
to go to their fellow man. Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot to learn from that. And when I was thinking about this show, what came to my mind is, what is the potential that we have as a collective culture? What the potential we would have to be able to do? Because if people can't divide us, and we didn't allow people to divide us, we'd become one.
Yes.
And the power that would bring to not only our own lives,
right,
but to the community, to the state of Florida. I think about the gentleman that was shot recently, and the guy was claiming stand your ground.
Yeah, the officer in Central Florida.
Yeah, and when they showed the videotape of this guy being pushed to the ground, him just automatically reaching for a gun, shooting him in his chest, and him walking into the store with his little son there, dying in front of his little son. And this gentleman who did that felt as though he was justified.
Absolutely. And then the sheriff didn't want to charge him.
Right.
Yeah, and that's frightening. I think that's a huge wake-up call. Like you said, this administration, love it or hate it, it is there as a wake-up call.
Right.
Because you have people that feel emboldened. Again, they're not looking at you and saying, do you eat a beef patty? or do you eat a hamburger, or do you eat whatever?
Right.
They're looking at you as the other.
Right.
And they're looking at all people of color
Right.
as the other. And that this country, meaning the United States, is not meant for you. But I remind you who built it. I'll remind you whose free slave labor came through on the slave trade from Charleston, going right to Africa, going to Jamaica, all the way through, babe, all the whole time for 400 years. So I'm gonna make claim to United States. My birthplace is Kingston, Jamaica, but I'm gonna make claim to what is here and what is mine, and what I feel are my inherited ancestry. I do claim that struggle, and I think a lot of people may not. I find that you got to understand people to embrace them, but having learned about the Moses generation in the United States and how literally it paved the way for me to even be here, I must too stand on those giant shoulders, and therefore it is also my struggle. I have not stopped being a black person, although I'm Jamaican, although I'm this, although I'm that. I know what we all face. And so I think that people need to also kind of go back and look at how different or how similar, especially throughout history, we've had to kind of like, become what should I say, fellow soldiers in the struggle. I think we got to look at what people, what the Harlem Renaissance were like, and we didn't see each other as other for a long time, and then people tricked us to believing that resources were limited, so we had to split up.
Right.
Like it's a bad breakup, but I'm not breaking up. I'm not breaking up at all.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Aretha Franklin, because I have a Aretha Franklin story I just wanted to share.
Yes.
As a young man, her songs meant so much to me. And I never got to see her in a concert until 3 years ago. I got to see her in Atlantic City concert. And after the concert, I was with a friend, and we went out to dinner. And when we went out to dinner, we were sitting there, and in walks Aretha Franklin and her entourage and sit right next to us at the table. And so, like a little kid, I'm staring at her, and she's looking at me, wondering,
do I know you?
Who's this guy? Right. And so I laughed, and I said to her, I've had a crush on you since ain't no way.
Oh my
and
God.
she started laughing and said, I'm glad I didn't run into you then, she said. But it was just so funny, and she was so personable.
Yeah.
And it was a dream of mine to meet her. And look at God, how he made that happen.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to share that. Aretha
That Queen
Franklin.
of Soul,
Yes.
we will miss her dearly.
And it's funny because her theme song, Respect,
What you want? Hey.
is what we've been. Okay,
sorry. I'm sorry. I just had
a little moment.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. We might have her on next week to do that. But, respect is an important thing in this world. And it has to begin with us offering it to one another.
Absolutely.
We need to respect each other and understand that respect comes just from you learning to respect other people and respecting yourself.
You just took the words out of my mouth.
Respecting yourself. Because when you do that, you're so willing to offer it to others.
Yeah, I think people just go back to the words of Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey when they kind of figured out like this whole trick of the system, I guess that is the best way to put it. Whether it's economic based, whether it's political based, we need each other. Once we figure that out, we would spend less time hating on each other and more time trying to figure out, our common ground and embracing one another. So I think, we have to be, much more vigilant and not really create inward enemies. The enemy within, we don't have time for. It's the enemy without. So we really, really have to spend productive time together in business, understanding what that person needs or how I can be a part of their growth, empowering other women. That's what I do. Suzette Speaks, my brand is about empowering other women. I typically tend to attract women of color, and that's what I want to be about. I want her to know that she can, so that she can birth whatever God put inside her, You know what I mean? So that's really what I'm about. Can I give a quick plug?
Yes, you certainly can, Suzette.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead then. All right. Well, two real quick. I do car accidents, Fort Lauderdale Law Group car accident attorneys. So I don't want you to get in a car accident, but if you do, call 1-833-TELL-SUE, just as it sounds. And the other plug is that I'm starting a women's meetup group. I want women in the South Florida area to be able to be in a safe, like-minded space where they can work on their passion projects. We're going to meet twice a month. Our first meeting is August 28th. If you're interested, inbox me, Suzette Speaks. And I also have a social coming up. I do a quarterly social for women, and it's called the Chat and True series. I partner with a good friend of mine, Jabrina Thompson. And this September 29th, we're going to be doing a series called Relax, Relate, Release. It's free. You just need to bring some wine or some dessert, and we are going to have a workshop for you to release if you need to release. So look out for that. I'm doing events all the time. I MC host, you know I do that. But just check out Suzette Speaks, the brand, like the page, the news personality page, and check out my Facebook Lives. I'm sure you will thoroughly enjoy them. But I really want to appreciate you, Al and DeLeon and the folks at Mature Life Radio. Big ups to Big Man Kelly. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I hope I can come back and visit.
Okay, I also want to give a shout out to DeLeon 305. There's an event tonight. It's called the Circle of Fathers. It's a dinner that's being hosted by DeLeon, and it's at the
Embassy Suites.
Embassy Suites.
Fort Lauderdale.
In Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
So check that out as well. It's called the Circle of Fathers Trailblazer Dinner.
Hey, shout out to the fathers. And we want to give one more shout out to the folks that have been joining us on Facebook Live. Thank you, Sharon Pitters, Cheryl Gaston, Dana Jones, BB Lewis, and once again, my homeboy, Andre Samuels. I'll see you in these streets. Yes, he says it's time to take back our streets like we did in the 70s and in the 60s. I couldn't agree with you more.
Amen. You all have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, it's about us.